This has been a great 3 days. We've all been listening to so much information and learning a lot from each other. And I want to say that being an environmentalist is a matter of course for anybody. It's an intrinsic goodness that is too often glossed over in too simple containers. We declared that we were, and then until recently we went about our lives as if the words went unuttered. It was 2 years to the day that something inside me began to shift, and I had to readjust my priorities somehow. The world around me, close and far, seemed to be utterly different at once. It wasn't just the newspaper articles, the picture of it, that was easily commodified by the volcanic eruption of magazines in the supermarket aisle with the word green on it. It was the sparks of people around me. It was the pace of change. There was a speed to it that I didn't recognize. There was a heady quality. I couldn't tell if it was bad or good, or if it was driven by false hopes or altruistic dreams, or a deep desire to be first, or to be moneyed, or to be on top. It was like everything seemed to be transforming in a time-lapse documentary film of a natural process. I wondered who the filmmaker was and what the story was about. An ecological imagination has a history and a legacy of thinking and making that has gone before for generations, really, including a plethora of accomplishments in the most recent past, and I wanted to refer you to in particular to some groups that have been mentioned today: Ocean Revolution, Green Museum, Eco Art Space. There's an exhibition at the Berkeley Art Museum, are also examples. In Rising Tide, we wanted to recognize the environmental discussion nuances and make a place to talk about it, to hash it out. There is a quality to difference, or a kind of difference, to what is happening now, and it is our hope that we furthered the investigation of this difference and brought it to another level. Academic institutions have a responsibility to provide a forum, a program, a curriculum, and a way to gather many experts in multiple disciplines together to nurture leadership in green issues. More bridges between such disciplines are ready for building. Artists, designers, architects, writers, filmmakers, musicians, scientists, all have their respective roles to play in changing public policies, both locally, nationally, and on a global scale. It's a mystery what gets someone to do something. For these past 3 days, we have been talking about the relationships between the visual tactile world, the science of nature, how a creative act can affect societal systems, policies, and fundamental change for the world. There are no perfect truths here, no answers to all problems, no definitive paths to follow. What we hoped we might do is look at these relationships deeply, spawn more ideas, more projects, more solutions, more questions, and inevitably more failures, in order to nurture a growing consciousness by creative makers on how to remake our relationship to nature, our built environments, and our own imaginations. We've looked at the vantage points from the Arctic Circle through David Buckland, the Sonoran Coast through Alberto Mulatto Moreno and the Comcalc community. Julia Parker spoke about the history of basket making and regathering, both showing us that Native American culture was always created in partnership with the natural world, as was the influence of African American history, eloquently indicated by Amanda Williams on Friday. David Gisson gets us to think about the way dark, dank, and wetness of historical buildings are important as well, as he calls it subnature. How can we think of the broadest possible definition of what nature actually is and what it encompasses? Spurred by the epic disaster of New Orleans' Katrina storm, architects Berman and Al-Khafif looked at the macrocosm of water-based cities, how they coped with flooding. This represents critical work in preparing our world cities for the impending flood issues. The parallax zoning work gets us to look very locally on what to prioritize in changing zoning issues. It was not immediately clear to me before hearing their talk that zoning issues were in fact obstacles to actual beneficial environmental policies in communities. It was compelling to hear about the city of Miami throwing out their zoning codes and rewriting them. It was also interesting to listen to Amy Franceschini help us remake the idea of politicians, and that no roles are not worth remaking. And in this remaking, we achieve new ways of living and being together. Can we adjust what we expect from our political leaders? For instance, we really expect a lot from our political leaders, so much so that very few people want to be one. So what should we do about that? We looked at the phenomenon of capitalism from several positions, that of artists Amy Burke and Andy Cox, who point out the problems of existing class structures, and that of Noel Perry, a venture capitalist funding many environmentally progressive initiatives. Are those two things in opposition? Are they in concert? What is next? As the creative environmental movement continues to roll across the continents and into the oceans, artists and designers and writers and philosophers create contexts and frameworks that are providing a fertile apparatus to hang our future on. We must stay tuned, be ripe, and get ready. Our hope is that your passion and your ingenuity, all of us here in this room and throughout these 3 days, will carry this new vision out into the world, into new forms, new policies, new directions. Thank you very much.